The Stygian council thus dissolved, and forth in order came the grand infernal peers. Midst came their mighty paramount, and seemed alone the antagonist of heaven, nor less than hell's dread emperor with pomp supreme and godlike imitated state. Him round a globe of fiery seraphim enclosed, with bright emblazonry and horrent arms. Then of their session ended they bid cry with trumpets' regal sound the great result. Toward the four winds four speedy cherubim put to their mouths the sounding alchemy. By herald's voice explained, the hollow abyss heard far and wide, and all the host of hell with deafening shout returned them loud acclaim. Thence more at ease their minds, and somewhat raised by false presumptuous hope, the ranged powers disband, and wandering each his several way, pursues his inclination or sad choice leads him perplexed, where he may likeliest find truce to his restless thoughts, and entertain the irksome hours till his great chief return, part on the plain, or in the air sublime upon the wing, or in swift race contend, as at the Olympian games or Pythian fields, part curb their fiery steeds, or shun the goal with rapid wheels, or fronted brigades form. As when toward proud cities war appears waged in the troubled sky, and armies rush to battle in the clouds before each van, prick forth the airy knights and couch their spears, till thickest legions close with feats of arms, from either end of heaven the welkin burns. Others with vast Typhoian rage, more fell, rend up both the rocks and hills, and ride the air in whirlwind. Hell scarce holds the wild uproar, as when Alcides, from Oechalia crowned, with conquest felt the envenomed robe, and tore through pain up by the roots Thessalian pines, and Lycus from the top of Oeta threw into the Euboic sea. Others more mild retreated in a silent valley, sing with notes angelical to many a harp their own heroic deeds and hapless fall by doom of battle, and complain that fate free virtue should enthrall to force her chance. Their song was partial, but the harmony, what could it less when spirits immortal sang, suspended hell, and took with ravishment the thronging audience, in discourse more sweet, for eloquence the soul, song charms the sense. Others apart sat on a hill retired, in thoughts more elevate, and reason high of providence, foreknowledge, will, and fate, fixed fate, free will, foreknowledge absolute, and found no end in wandering mazes lost, of good and evil much they argued then, of happiness and final misery, passion and apathy, and glory and shame, vain wisdom all, and false philosophy. Yet with a pleasing sorcery could charm pain for a while, or anguish, and excite fallacious hope, or arm the obdured breast with stubborn patience, as with triple steel. Another part, in squadrons and gross bands, on bold adventure to discover wide that dismal world, if any clime perhaps might yield them easier habitation, bend four ways their flying march along the banks of four infernal rivers that disgorge into the burning lake their baleful streams. Abhorred Styx, the flood of deadly hate, sad Archeon of sorrow, black and deep, Cocytus named of lamentation loud, heard on the rueful stream, fierce Phlegethon, whose waves of torrent fire inflame with rage, far off from these a slow and silent stream, Lethe the river of oblivion rolls, her watery labyrinth, whereof who drinks forthwith his former state, and being forgets both joy and grief, pleasure and pain. Beyond this flood a frozen continent lies dark and wild, beat with perpetual storms of whirlwind and dire hail, which on firm land thaws not, but gathers heap and ruin seams of ancient pile, all else deep snow and ice, a gulf profound as that Serbonian bog betwixt Damasia and Mount Cassius old, where armies whole have sunk. The parching air burns frore, and cold performs the effect of fire, thither by harpy-footed furies hailed. At certain revolutions all the damned are brought, and feel by turns the bitter change of fierce extremes by change more fierce, from beds of raging fire to starve in ice, their soft ethereal warmth, and there to pine immovable, in fixed and frozen round periods of time, thence hurried back to fire. They ferry over this Lethean sound both to and fro, their sorrow to augment and wish and struggle as they pass to reach the tempting stream, with one small drop to lose in sweet forgetfulness, all pain and woe, all in one moment, and so near the brink. But faith withstands. And to oppose the attempt, Medusa with Gorgonian terror guards the ford, and of itself the water flies, all taste of living white as once it fled the lip of Tantalus. Thus roving on in confused march forlorn, the adventurous bands with shuddering horror pale and eyes aghast, viewed first their lamentable lot and found no rest. Through many a dark and dreary vale they passed, and many a region dolorous, o'er many a frozen, many a fiery Alp. Rocks, caves, lakes, fens, bogs, dens, and shades of death, a universe of death, which God by curse created evil. For evil only good, where all life dies, death lives, and nature breeds perverse, all monstrous, all prodigious things, abominable, unutterable, and worse than fables yet have feigned or fear conceived, gorgons and hydras and chimeras dire. Meanwhile, the adversary of God and man, Satan, with thoughts inflamed of highest design, puts on swift wings and towards the gates of hell explores his solitary flight. Sometimes he scours the right-hand coast, sometimes the left. Now shaves with level wing the deep, then soars up to the fiery concave, touring high. As when far off at sea a fleet descried hangs in the clouds by equinoctial winds, close sailing from Bengalia or the isles of Ternate and Tidore, whence merchants bring their spicy drugs. They on the trading flood through the wide Ethiopian to the Cape ply stemming nightly toward the pole. So seemed far off the flying fiend at last appeared. Hell bounds high, reaching to the horrid roof, and thrice threefold the gates. 3 folds were brass, 3 iron, 3 of adamantine rock, impenetrable, impaled with circling fire, yet unconsumed. Before the gates there sat, on either side, a formidable shape. The one seemed a woman to the waist, and fair, but ended foul in many a scaly fold, voluminous and vast, a serpent armed with mortal sting about her middle round. A cry of hellhounds never ceasing barked, with wide Cerberian mouths, full loud, and rung a hideous peal, yet when they list would creep, if aught disturbed their noise, into her womb and kennel there, yet there still barked and howled within unseen. Far less abhorred than these, vexed Scylla, bathing in the sea that parts Calabria from the hoarse Trinacarian shore. Nor uglier follow the night hag, when called in secret, riding through the air she comes, lured with the smell of infant blood, to dance with Lapland witches, while the labouring moon eclipses at their charms. The other shape, if shape it might be called, that shape had none distinguishable in member, joint, or limb, or substance might be called that, shadow seemed, for each seemed either black it stood as night, fierce as 10 furies, terrible as hell, and shook a dreadful dart. What seemed his head the likeness of a kingly crown had on. Satan was now at hand, and from his seat the monster moving onward came as fast, with horrid strides. Hell trembled as he strode, the undaunted fiend. What this might be admired, not feared, God and his Son except. Created thing not valued he nor shunned, and with disdainful look he thus began. Whence and what art thou, execrable shape, that darest, though grim and terrible, advance thy miscreated front athwart my way to yonder gates? Through them I mean to pass, that be assured, without leave asked of thee. Retire, or taste thy folly, and learn by proof, hell-born, not to contend with spirits of heaven. To whom the goblin, full of wrath, replied, Art thou that traitor angel? Art thou he who first broke peace in heaven, in faith till then unbroken, and in proud rebellious arms drew after him the third part of heaven's sons conjured, against the highest, for which both thou and they, outcast from God, are here condemned to waste eternal days in woe and pain? And reckon'st thou thyself with spirits of heaven, hell-doomed, and breathest defiance here, and scorn where I reign king? And to enrage thee more, thy king and lord, back to thy punishment, false fugitive. And to thy speed add wings, lest with a whip of scorpions I pursue thy lingering, or with one stroke of this dart strange horror seize thee, and pangs unfelt before. So spake the grisly terror, and in shape so speaking and so threatening grew tenfold more dreadful and deform. On the other side, incensed with indignation, Satan stood, unterrified, and like a comet burned, that fires the length of Ophiuchus huge in the Arctic sky, and from his horrid hair shakes pestilence and war. Each at the head levelled his deadly aim, their fatal hands no second stroke intend, and such a frown each cast at the other, as when two black clouds with heaven's artillery fraught come rattling on, over the Caspian, then stand front to front, hovering a space till winds the signal blows to join their dark encounter in mid-air. So frowned the mighty combatants that hell grew darker at their frown. So matched they stood, for never but once more was either like to meet so great a foe. And now great deeds have been achieved whereof all hell had rung, had not the snaky sorceress that sat fast by hell gate and kept the fatal key risen, and with hideous outcry rushed between.